Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going all the way down to Tampa, Florida. We're going to talk with a young man who's definitely setting the music industry on fire. He was here for a musical convention with Uncle Jams as one of the MECAP's up-and-coming artists. I mean, this MECAP organization is like finding talent all over the United States, and I'm blessed that they want to appear and tell their story on my platform. Today is no different. This guy, let me explain to you a little bit of what I know about him. Definitely has some roots in several places through the United States, from Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Minnesota, and from what I understand, he might be coming to Indianapolis, Indiana. Keep that under wraps. His songs are truly inspirational, very heartfelt, a lot of meaning behind the words and the lyrics. And today he's going to take some time out to tell us how he got into the industry, some meanings, the meaning for why he writes what he writes, and then he's going to share with us a new project that he's working on. I'd like to welcome to the show all the way from Tampa, Florida, the one, the only, Javen Jackson. Did I get the first name right? Because that's a very unique and wonderful name.
You did hit it on the money. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Hey, I heard you perform, I believe it was last month, if I'm not mistaken, live.
Yeah.
And I was truly blown away how you young artists can literally perform your tracks without really instruments behind you, how the acapella part of you guys' vocals is so beautiful. It's crazy. Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Jackson. Well, Mr. Jackson is a Pensacola boy, born and raised. I like to be fly. I like to take a lot of flights. I like to travel. I'm inspired by a lot of different people, a lot of different things. And ultimately, the goal is to fall into the same category as some people that I consider to be a contemporary at some point, like The Weeknd, Miguel, Chris Brown, Usher, or whatnot. These are some, Frank Ocean, some of the people that really inspired the music that I write, and also just their way of being. I don't write rap music at all, but Tupac was another big like icon of mine growing up. I remember my pops always listening to him. So folks like that. I started off as an athlete. Most of my life, I've always been playing football and running track. Then I took track to college. Did that for 5 years because I had a COVID year. And then once I found music, was actually during COVID. I started writing a little bit before that, but it wasn't until COVID hit where I just had all that time on my hands. And I mean, I just kind of ran away with it. And people really started vibing with the music. I found a really great producer. I only used like 2 or 3. Uncle Jams and MECAP was the first time that I went outside of that. And I really think they were also super talented as well. But starting off, it was just me and a couple of friends that, you know, did music way longer than me, but they kind of heard my voice. And whenever I would just come in, I'd be as prepared as possible. And then we just got to work. And then I just kept on having a lot of life experiences, whether it was with these one-off women that I was dating, or, you know, the long-term partner that I'm with now that just inspired a lot of the writing that I do, and just life in general. I feel like I can take a lot of experiences, whether it's mine or others, and sort of internalize it. I don't consider myself more like an empath in like the the majority sense, but as far as like from a perspective of just like hearing people's story and watching people's lives, and I can kind of internalize that and be like, well, they didn't say it, but this is what I felt like they were trying to say.
It's funny that you mentioned track and football, because that was my field as well as professional building. But my scholarship was in track and field. I'm from the Georgia, Florida area.
Georgia, Florida, Bama.
Deep down south. Yeah, we're not. I lived in Tampa, where you're currently at, but music didn't really come into your mainstream until COVID. You was focusing on your sport. What was it that all of a sudden just a light switch went up? You was listening to Tupac and said, "Okay, I want to be a singer."
No, I mean, it's funny. Like it always sat in the back of my head. It just never seemed feasible. I remember in 5th grade, and they're like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Which I'll get to that later, because I think that there's a separation between what do you want to be, like what do you want to do, and who you want to be. Right. But I said I either want to be a pro football player, an Olympic athlete, or a singer. And the singer I just kind of threw out there. I didn't think too much about it. My grandfather, he used to sing in the church. He was also a minister. And then I grew up in the church too. So I mean, I sung in the youth choir, but I was way too nervous of a kid to ever like want the spotlight on me. So even though like I could sing, like I would like harmonize.
I don't believe that, because I just saw you perform in front of people and you was right at home, dude.
I found my home on the stage now, for sure. Starting off, it took getting over myself, probably more than anything, and just like learning this, like use the gifts that God gave me and don't be afraid to stand behind it.
You mentioned something that was pretty profound. You mentioned when you was in the 5th grade, and I'm pretty sure we've all heard that. What do you want to be when you grow up? Enlighten that to the viewers and how it resonated to you and how you defined it today.
Yeah, well, it was my first management class that I took in college, and it was like the last week of school. And I can't remember the professor's name, but he was like, there's a distinct difference between like, what do you want to do when you grow up and who you want to be? He's like, because oftentimes we equate the two. And just because there's something that you do, whether you're a teacher or a plumber, a nurse, that doesn't consume your whole life. That's not who you are, because you have outside of there. So it's like who you want to be, the things that you enjoy to do as far as your hobbies go, as far as your interests, your relationships, your love life. So it's like there's so much more to life than just your profession. Mm-hmm. So I took that and I sort of ran with it, because I know, especially going into music, it can be a dark and scary and manipulative place if you let it, if you don't know who you are, if you don't have like a firm grip of like where you see yourself. And if you don't see yourself somewhere, then someone will sell you on where they see you, and then you'll just keep following that. Next thing you know, your whole image and likeness isn't even what you initially wanted, but you wanted to please everybody around you. So I knew that ultimately taking care of myself was going to be the ultimate goal, because I can't take care of no one else unless I do that. So yeah, that's what I mean when I say like who you want to be and like what you want to do. Yeah, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, I'm an artist, I'm a performer, but at the same time, I want to be looked at as an extraordinary leader and a great father, a dear friend, and just all the above.
You talked about you're a D1 athlete. I know the strains that it takes to be good in those areas, in that craft, to being a great football player, to being a track and field athlete, and then trying to navigate the entertainment field. Those are three demanding professions. Who did you actually gravitate to to make that transition to music? Because you just said that you had the ability, or at least you had enough talent, because we talked off camera, some pretty high profile NFL players, from Trent Richardson, Emmitt Smith, Roy Jones. Those are some caliber people to be in your circle. Who did you talk to about making this transition to music? Because don't get me wrong, I mean, all those fields are hard to get into, and it requires a lot of work and determination. But the music industry is probably even more difficult, because most people consider singing a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. I have people, whenever I tell them I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, and they say they do as well, and I'm like, oh, do you have anything out or something like that? And they're like, no, I just like to do it or not. I'm like, okay, but I mean, I actually do this. I live and breathe it, but I get it. Everyone wants to relate in that sense, because we all love music. For me, I'm about to say, some things I feel were sort of destined, because my dad and Roy were so cool at such a young age, as far as their moms go and dad goes. And then even leading up until like high school, when my brother went to the same high school. My brother and sister went to the same high school as Trent, Escambia. I went to and I would have honestly went there too, but I got accepted into like the technical high school and whatnot. And so my mom wanted me to go and just get a better education. And I followed a little bit of IT, and that's in that field. But really, it was a tribe of people from, the same guy that coached Trent, Coach Boyd, Coach Tino, which was my head coach. He was a sergeant in the Navy, retired now, but he was training me since I was a young guy all the way up until high school. His son was my best friend, and between that and then my dad, my dad was probably one of the first people that just ingrained into my mind. He said, "You can do whatever you put your mind to, son." He didn't say you can do whatever you want. He's like, whatever you put your mind to, whatever you focus on. He's like, find your strengths and you really double down on it. He's like, you don't have to be anything other than who you are. And my mom giving me like just game on how to have like work ethic, and how to sort of developed a little bit of a perfectionism to it, but I always saw like a micro goal. So I never got too into the minutia of things to where I gave myself like analysis paralysis. It was more so just trial and error. And all the different fields that, went into my life, whether it was football, track, and then music, it all stems from discipline. It all stems on, are you able to be resilient? Are you able to feel pain, feel discomfort, and still move past it, and still go through it, and not just go through the motions? Because there's a lot of, I've seen some of the most talented people, whether it's in music or sports, and then just went through the motions, or they got in their own way. They let their ego make them think that they were better than who they are, and just stopped working. So that was something I just never saw myself doing. I always, I won Scholar Athlete at Pensacola my senior year, which I never thought I would, I just didn't see it happening. I knew that I did well ever since I was a freshman, but I didn't have a lot of individual accolades. It was mostly relays and things like that. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to win up here. I see all these different guys that I've ran with, known since I was young, on stage. And then as they're talking about who this recipient is, it started sounding more and more like me, until they named me. And then that was sort of just like a turning point for me. Both of my older sisters were there, and my mom. So that was just like a real big moment, to where I felt it, but then I was like, all right, am I going to peak though? Am I going to be one of those people that, flops? Like you said, there's a lot of people that, especially coming out of Pensacola, that just kind of flopped. And I was like, well, that ain't going to be me. So I went off to college, South Alabama, 45 minutes away from my hometown. I thought I was going to go super far off. I was like, I want to get out of town. I want to explore, see the world. And I went 45 minutes. But it honestly worked out for the best. And I just made a conscious effort. I said, man, if I'm going to spend 4 years here, on a partial scholarship, which I ultimately got closer to a full scholarship, then I'm going to soak up every bit of um, education experience that I possibly could, meet as many people as I could. I would do things, and it was the first time I was away from like a bunch of family. I'm so used. I'm one of 8, the middle child, so I'm so used to like coming home to just like a rambunctious household with a lot going on, to just like going home and it's just me. And for a while, that kind of like put me in this place where I felt like FOMO, where I was kind of going out doing a bunch of things just to like have fun with my teammates or whatnot. But then I was like, no, let's double down. Why are we really here? And so I just made it a conscious effort to talk to the people in my classes, get to know my professors. And I always wanted to minor in music, but because between track and school and working, I just didn't really have a bunch of time to do it. And then the one time I was about to do like a singing class, there wasn't enough people in the class to where they ended up dropping it. So I was like, man. So I never got to education, go through the educational part of it, especially because they were like, you need to know how to read music and all these different things that I didn't know how to do. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I wanted to take risks and be creative and make millions of dollars. But
do you know how to read?
I didn't know exactly what the avenue was going to. What's that?
Do you know how to read music? I'm just curious. Do you know how to read music?
Sort of, a little bit. I'm not going to be, I can't like sheet read. I can't like play read, but I can like I can read notes on a paper. And I mean, I play guitar. So I know enough to play guitar and do a little bit of production, but I'm no theorist by any means.
Do you think, because you mentioned
self-taught,
you mentioned you're self-taught, has the like of the educational part of your music part, has that affected you in your progress moving forward, or because you're self-taught, or have you been able to overshadow those like ofs?
I always see like, I didn't think it was a lack of. I think that it was sort of a little bit of a rebellion of like, I felt like I wanted to just kind of do it my way. But I realized there were certain things I just I couldn't get past, like those 7 notes and then minor and majors and these different progressions and or whatnot. And for me, it was learning how to use my voice. Because once I learned how to use my voice, it translated into the rest of the realm of things. And I think it kept me curious. It kept me like excited about what could be, because I didn't have any sort of like rules to boggle me down. But once I was in these sessions with people that like my producer Luke, shout out Luke Kane, and he I would just sit there and watch him, and I've known him since we were in middle school. He was like the coolest guy that I knew in music, in the band, and he was in like jazz band, and then high school he was on drum. He was like the drum line leader, and then he started like a rock band, and then like this sort of like funkadelic band when he was in Gainesville at UF. He's all around the country, and I travel to see him often, and that's where most of my sessions get done and whatnot. But it was just finding people that I felt like were just more talented than me, had a good ear. C. Lou is another guy I met in college. He was more into like the rap side and like the R&B stuff. Him and his friend Shane, they were some of the first producers that recorded with Flo Milli, and there's a couple of her joints that first hit off, and I got in with them, and then I would still get with my boys. So it was more of a combination of people that I would just meet, and I'm like, well, if there's something about them, and then they obviously saw that there was something about me and my willingness to want to get into it that ultimately made me fall into where I am now.
What did they see that you was lacking? Because you mentioned once you learned something about your voice, What were they sharing
Yeah.
with you? Because we all to be great is a continuous cycle. But to be great, you also have to be able to accept criticism. I don't want to always hear what I'm doing right. What were you doing
Yeah.
wrong?
I was one trying to sing too high. I thought that I had this like tenor voice when I'm more of like a baritone. I do have like a higher range of my voice, but that came from singing like singing like um, these Sam Smith or Adele songs or Beyonce's or whatever. And I was just trying to train my voice in that range. But it was more so them telling me, one, be more like quiet down when I'm in front of the mic because I'd be way too loud and it was messing up the dynamics. And then two, it was effortless effort. They were saying like it was like it's not like don't try so hard, but at the same time don't make it lifeless. So between that and then I mean the grand scheme of what everyone said that I was doing wrong earlier on, it was running in too many different directions. I would run in one direction for like sports, and then I turn and run into another one in an entrepreneur endeavor when I was selling, when I was in insurance sales and recruiting. And then I always would run back to music for a little bit, but it was this constant running in these different directions, but getting very little progress because I couldn't build any momentum in it, which is why now I'm in year 3 of making music. And I really feel like this is the best time for me as far as like me figuring out what my brand looks like, what it feels like, even what it tastes like, and giving people a vision of what I see. And once they picked up on, a clear, concise vision, it kind of reined in that chaos to where they're like, okay, now we're talking.
What exactly, now that you got this, you've been 3 years into this, what was your blueprint moving forward? I mean, you mentioned your brand. How did you manage to put all this together instead of just, like you said, running here, doing this and doing this? What helped you put together the blueprint for success on the road in which you're doing right now?
Well, like I said, when I was 18, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I would take like courses, whether it was ways of thinking or if it was like how to set up a brand and how to set up an LLC, which I set up Lotus Exclusive, which is my music brand, to studying everything that I need to know about publishing and royalties and all the different ways that you can get paid for your music. And then, I got my degree in marketing management. And so I took that instead of in class when I was listening to them saying, this is what you need to know if you're going to go work for somebody or work for these big companies. I would always reverse engineer it and be like, this is what I'm looking for in people that I'm looking to hire, or these are the traits that I need to have if I want to be successful in my endeavor. And then I would reverse engineer that until COVID. I started my MBA, and then I was taking my MBA. So I was only having to take 2 classes, but I was also working at 2 different places. I worked at a country club for almost the entirety of my time in Mobile, where I just would listen to people, watch their mannerisms. I started to get to know these individuals that would offer me jobs or opportunities, whether it was a real estate. There was a 4-star general retiree, the first Black man actually to J. Gary Cooper is his name, but he led Marine Corps infantry back in Vietnam. I got to meet with him there and then outside of there. And he was a great guy. Rest in peace. I found out he passed away not like the last year, the year before. But yeah, it was just a connection of those. And then when I reeled it in and really took the time out to be like, what type of music am I going to make? What's my sound going to be like? And then finding individuals to sort of help me put it together. I say that I'm finally kind of getting a much stronger team now than I've had before. But yeah, it was more so just thinking creatively and taking risks and not being afraid to fail and not being afraid to do the work, because everyone can talk about it, everyone can say what they want to do, but I wanted to start from day one when I released music to think about the end in mind of what my catalog was gonna be. Because if I just started releasing shit music from the beginning, then it would have been I would have lost the trust of people very early on, and it would have been hard to gain them back. So I always wanted to focus on quality music, and I had the personnel to do it. So still got a huge catalog of unreleased music, but when things kind of creams of crops rise to the top, I just let it go, and then it's received well. And at this point, it's really just about putting more energy behind the promotion of it,
Right.
and getting out and performing more, which is what I've started to do here in Tampa, where I found a collective of people to put shows on.
Before we get ready to wrap up, there's a couple more questions that I'm going to ask. You mentioned your degree. You studied marketing. You came to Indianapolis for an event. That's how I ran into you and got the chance to meet you. What have you learned from the new venture that you teamed up with MECAP that you didn't have before? What part of that organization has elevated you, and what did you get from going with that organization versus more or less being independent?
Well, when you're independent, you got little to no guidance. That can be a blessing because you don't have any rules, but at the same time, there's people that's done it, tried and true, proven success, like Uncle Jams, for example, where there was things that I was doing wrong that I just didn't know I was doing wrong. So it's like, until there's someone that's like seen things 100 times and see what works and what doesn't, and just listening and being able to take criticism and not feel like someone's, being negative, but actually listening to what they're saying and how you can integrate it into your brand and into my music, to where I just realized that there's certain things that don't need to be posted on social media, but there's also a lot more social media that needs to be created and posted to create that connection with fans. It's also, there's a hot and cold that you can't fall into. You can't, hop on and just go. And then next thing you know, fall off the face of the earth. And then people are like, all right, well, where's this person at? What are they doing?
Right.
I also realized it does take money. It does take a lot. It does take money to fuel the vision. I've been on my own essentially since I was 18. So learning the personal finance aspects of things, to where I had to be able to take care of that, but also sacrifice any sort of like leisure and put that back into my business, reinvesting my time and money into it to actually make it happen. MECAP, all the people that I met through it, I see that there's a bunch of talent. I see that it's individuals that I honestly want to work with, and I met all of them. And then I met you as well as a couple of other radio personnel. And I was just like, these are some people that I really, truly feel like I connect with. And yeah, I enjoyed everything that you and the panel said. I thought that it was insightful, and I took that, came down here, and I ran with it, which is where I found the team. But I'm a big person, big believer in manifesting. So I was just setting my sights, set my intentions, but also using the law of assumption to be like knowing that like, this is what I was meant to do. This is what I was meant to be. And getting over myself in any sort of aspect of feeling like I was lacking any specific skill set or knowledge, because all that stuff I was going to learn along the way anyway in the process. I've always been good at picking up on things fast, whether it was a skill set or with personnel. So I really give, Kneecap, Uncle Jams, all of his guidance. I give him a lot of flowers in that aspect. And, I can be a little stubborn to work with. But at the same time, I think that, like I said earlier, it's like I know where I see myself in the end. And just because someone else sees something different doesn't we might be able to find a middle ground here, or there's certain things that's like this is just what we're gonna have to go with, and we're just gonna have to make it work, and we did.
So tell me about your style of music before we wrap up. You have a very unique deliverance. What would you classify your music as, and what is it that makes your music different, and what are you trying to say in the music to the individuals? You wasn't prepared for all that, were you?
Like I wasn't. I was like, all right, what's my music? But at the same time, people ask me often, and I usually always start with R&B. But at the same time, my music, I feel like, is a lot more than just R&B. I think I have R&B vocals, as far as the way that I sort of deliver, to where any song that you hear, you're gonna kind of feel that warm silk like smoothness to it, unless I want to switch it up and I give you something edgy and alternative, which I've started to do with the song that I did called like Learn My Lesson, where we do my vocal into like a guitar amp, and then we have like a guitar solo. There's crazy drums in it, but it's ultimately pop music. People like Donald Glover, Frank Ocean, and Miguel, The Weeknd have just shown me that like there's so much more to just R&B, and Brent Faiyaz is another one of them too. There's so much more to R&B than just what we grew up on. I for one, it's funny because I for one never was a huge fan of like OG R&B. Of course, that like Chris Brown, Usher, Jamie Foxx, some of these people were like my earlier influences, but I've always loved so much different vast types of music to where I just would go on YouTube or listen to the beats that people sent me, and I was just looking for like a specific sound. I was looking for like a pocket where my voice could sit into, and sometimes I would already have the lyrics, other times I would have the melody. I would create the melody and then find out what the lyrics are, like what I was actually trying to say. But a lot of the inspiration definitely comes from the muses of women that I've been with, and the different roller coaster rides that they might have taken, the roller coasters they might have taken me on, and use that as like fuel to paint a picture in a song without really outing nobody.
Now you're getting ready to
myself.
You're getting ready to do another project real quick with Tupac as your inspiration. Tell me a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Yeah. So there's a song that'll be probably one of the first that I release, and it's called Rose from a Concrete. I got the beat from a guy, his name is Yavo the drummer. And I met him by going to a Natalia Jimenez concert. OG, are you familiar with Natalia Jimenez?
No, but I'm gonna look him up.
She's an OG Latin. She's an OG Latin pop singer.
Okay.
And I was bartending at a hotel where their band was playing at, and then I played my song Caliente for him. He heard it. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take you backstage." We chopped it up a little bit. He gave me front row ticket seats, and so I got to meet her just briefly. But me and him kind of got in contact. He was sending me some stuff, and then I worked on Concrete from the Rose, and then there's a couple of other songs that I'm gonna put out. It's more of like a progressive. Probably it's not gonna be something that you play in the club. I got something for that coming, but it's gonna be a part of like my Humboldt series. So my new approach is being both humble but bold at the same time. And so I'm gonna be Humboldt. And Tupac was the inspiration of that, because as I was just reading the poem through, out of out of, his book right here. It
Uh-huh.
just gave me found it, inspiration. And whenever I'm like writing or things like that, and I kind of get stuck, then like I'll just, pop open that book and kind of see what he wrote back when he was, sitting in jail, or just whenever he was writing that. And then it would just give like refresh my way of thinking and my mentality. And he's always been somebody I feel like I've always like carried a little bit of that persona when I was like really in that mode, whether it was on the track or football or whenever I'm going out on stage. You saw me perform in Indiana, but you didn't see what I was doing. I was back right outside, right before I walked through the door. I had my whole show that I sort of had already prepared, and I just had to get myself hyped right before I walked in there.
Really?
And little did I know I was going to have to sit down and actually listen and talk for a little bit. I was like, so it kind of put me down a little bit, but not a lot. I picked it back up. But no, yeah. So taking on personas and creating your own ultimately. So that's J Jack for me.
But on a more sad note, before we wrap up, my hat's off to you, because I know the trip when you came to Indianapolis, but I also know you was met with tragedy when you walked through that door with the passing of your friend and stuff. My deepest condolence. So the thing is, how are you
Thank you.
doing?
It's my cousin, actually.
Yeah, how are you doing with the loss of your cousin? Because to have that have happened to you so quickly, and I remember you going right on the stage and going into character to perform for the people there. But the bottom line is, how were you doing after the loss of your family member?
I was shocked because it was a suicide. He pulled over on the side of a highway and shot himself. It was actually Roy Jones' son, and ironically, his name is Andre too. And he was going through a lot with like his divorce and things like that. I don't want to get too far into it with him, but that it was a huge shock for me, and I just lost. My sister had a miscarriage in her third trimester as well, just like 2 or 3 weeks before that. So it was like I lost 2 family members almost instantly, even though like I was feeling like I was getting into like the golden, age of like my music starting to grow and really getting a bunch of traction. And I didn't want it to cripple me, but I also didn't want to act like it wasn't there, like it wasn't affecting me. He was he's somebody that's always used to make me laugh, but he also used to make beats and things like that. They kind of went to his house and like would hear some of his beats and things. And him and his brother just sort of and took me in. I was younger than all of them, and that was just made me feel like I was that guy, like I was the man. So to hear that had happened, my dad called me the day before. I said, it hurts, but I can't let it stop me. I said, if anything, I'm dedicated to him. So I went out there on that stage and I did my thing. But then afterwards, I just had to go outside, and I really just had a moment with myself before I could even walk back in the door, because it was painful. But working through the pain has always been something that I've had to deal with. I watched your podcast, and I heard your story, and it was really similar because my stepfather, who passed away right before COVID, he was a mom 17 years, but he was also a drug user. And so just kind of growing up with that in the household, and my father kind of being maybe on the other end of that, and my mom just sort of working night shifts, it just left me with a lot of me and my siblings with a lot of together time, but a lot of alone time to really fortify your character, fortify your confidence. And then once I attached myself to different endeavors, whether it was work or music or sports, it allowed me to sort of submerge myself in it, just because it was my way of sort of like, getting out of my own world of what it was like growing up and in my circumstances. So that was the long answer, but the short version of it is, I think tragedy can breed something beautiful if you allow it, but can also send you to a dark place if you allow it. And I've dealt with both, and I just feel like if I can come out of it, then I can at least have a story to tell other people to where they can triumph as well. That's what I try to do with my music, is something that's more uplifting, that's and that's relatable, and that's what I want to leave people. I want to touch hearts, mind, and souls of people, and I think that I can save souls even if I am in the secular music world.
Do me a favor before we wrap up. Give us an acapella, something that one of your best songs. You got a lot of songs, but give us an acapella, something.
One of my best songs.
Yeah. Give us a little hit before we wrap up.
Butterflies is the big one everyone really enjoys, but it goes like, you give me those butterflies every time that you walk by. And you give me those butterflies every time that you walk by.
I like that.
All eyes on you, but you follow the crowd.
I like that.
Yeah, that's one of that one I wrote out that one on the guitar. But yeah, I got 22 songs out. First Impression is the one that I wrote with Uncle Jams. That one I'm a huge fan of. It feels so vintage and R&B too. That was. And they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
I love that one. Yeah. I like that one a lot. How can the viewers reach out to you, get your music, book you for appearances? How can give us that information?
So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as TikTok at just Javen Jackson. And then if you want to email me at javenjacksonmusic@gmail.com, that's where you can book me, as well as, hit me up, send me, song ideas, or if you want to work together on any sort of endeavor, that's where you'll be able to reach me at.
Javen, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day of creating music for the world. It's been a pleasure. I'm honored to have you on the show. My deepest sympathy out to you for the loss of two very special people in your life. I know you're gonna change the world with your music and helping other individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.